On this edition of Independent Sources, Tackling Tenants' Rights, an East Harlem organization fights to keep low-income families in their homes.
Anybody that's going to develop in our community got to give 50% to the community preference. And I know the community boards do it across the border as well. This way it can balance out, and our residents of our community can have an opportunity to move into those developments that are being up and rising in our neighborhoods.
And raising a strong voice, how one Chinese radio station helped build a community in Queens.
The media and the community, the power strength is more and more than before.
Those stories and more coming up on Independent Sources. Welcome to Independent Sources, bringing you news from New York's ethnic and immigrant communities. I'm Garry Pierre-Pierre. The 116th Street Block Association has been standing up for tenants' rights in East Harlem for more than 30 years. These days, the organization has its work cut out for it. Rents are skyrocketing, while tenant rights seem to be eroding. I spoke with the association's executive director, Hilda Kendi Vives-Vasquez, about the history of the organization and the work it does. Kendi, usually when we think of block associations, we think of an organization that's involved with quality of life, beautifying the streets and all of that. But the 116th Street Block Association does a lot more than that. Tell us about it.
We deal with housing, and we also help people with social economic needs. It's based on the individuals. We try to empower the residents and the families to become self-sufficient. And we've done a lot of initiative with housing, such as low-income tax credit, homes for working families, which is state-funded housing, and we also have a senior citizen development, which is for seniors 62 and over of low income. That's for the very low income. And we've also helped out in a co-development that was an initiative taken on by, back then, the former Mayor Koch, that he did an initiative back in the 80s with private developers and community-based organization. So he took that model and had the 116th Street Block Association start doing affordable Section 8-based housing. And from there, we helped out HPD with the
That's a housing
preservation development. Once the organization started, it formed itself. They also helped take over some of the buildings that were abandoned, and the residents were so concerned about that because a lot of landlords, you know, back in the 70s and in the 80s, they really weren't interested in the community in housing.
You know, a lot of times, speaking of housing, and you can speak to this, is that tenants don't know their rights. Mm-hmm. Do you find that's the case? And when you find that, what do you do? How do you help them?
Well, we inform them and educate them on what they can do to help themselves to get the quality of living. We also contact the management office or the owner directly as to the concerns of the individual and the family. You know, how it's affecting them with the health. Because, you know, having a healthy home, it promotes you to be able to go out there and work and be able to take care of your family and your children, you know, and it brings in stability as well. Mm-hmm. And we also have that one directive. Now we go to the tenants, we have tenants meeting and let them know how they can empower themselves as tenants, which was an initiative also we did with on the contract with HPD with the TIL program. Mm-hmm. And that helped the tenants to become homeowners right from there and taking care of their building and improving it.
You know, Mayor de Blasio, even as a candidate, made affordable housing a tenet of his campaign. And is that a possibility in New York City to have affordable housing?
Yes, anything is possible as long as we come up with a formula and a solution how we're going to make that happen. And I strongly believe and I support all the initiatives that he's bringing and his ideas.
From your perspective, from the grassroots perspective, what would you tell him? What would your advice to him? Because this seems like such a, yeah, you said anything is possible, but it's so hard to get hands around this issue of affordable housing. How is he going to crack it?
What I would love to see is to have done 50, 30, 20 buildings, which is will balance out.
What's that?
That will balance out the tenants who are very low income, and the medium income, and the high income. And this way balances out for people who are also over income, the threshold of the guidelines, that it gives them an opportunity to also be part of the housing initiative, where we really don't have enough housing to service for everybody, because housing is a right one. And to a lot of people, that's the biggest issue right now besides education and health.
New York City has changed tremendously from the 70s, from when Koch was mayor to now. We've seen a lot of movement of people in various neighborhoods. How has that impacted the whole affordable housing discussion?
What it is just all based on income, and sometimes you're a little either over less than $1, or over, let me just retract that, over $1. And if that happens, then you're not eligible for certain housing. It all depends on the funding, like I said, and what is your criteria to become eligible. And
If de Blasio had to do one thing now in your mind to change the equation, what would it be?
I feel that it should be neighborhood-based, as well as just to balance out, people talking about gentrification, to balance out, it should be based on neighborhood income-based, all right? We do have in East Harlem, and I can speak for East Harlem,
Sure.
we have, and I call it like a paella, you know, because we have a mixture of so many different diverse people, you know, with diverse incomes that are doubled up at home with their families. You have a diverse of people that cannot afford to move out because of their resources, of their income. So we have to come up with a solution. And I would love to sit down with him and be part of that.
Maybe he'll be watching the show, just to tell him what you'd like to do.
Yeah, and sit at the round table to what can we do to come up with a solution for this problem that we're facing right now. And it's all over the world, but this is our problem here. And what I would like to do is just talk about how the very low are being affected. People with $8,000 a year can't find an apartment right now.
What do they do?
Well, they're living with someone else. If not, they're in a shelter. You know, this is the reality is what it is. If there's two incomes in the same household with the same amount of fundings, then they look for apartments that will qualify them with that type of income that they can afford. Because remember, affordable housing is who can afford it.
Exactly. And how is the lack of affordable housing in East Harlem changing the community?
It's changing the community, but what we also have is people from the community that can afford to live they have the opportunity to also live in our community. We have in our community board, and you know, I'm not speaking for the community board, but just a policy that is implemented is that anybody that's going to develop in our community got to give 50% to the community preference. And I know the community boards do it across the border as well. This way it can balance out, and our residents of our community can have an opportunity to move into those developments that are being up and rising in our neighborhoods.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Kendi Vives-Vasquez, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come on the show, getting students and parents to eat right, whether they like it or not. Before that, Abby Schuler has some other news.
Thanks, Gary. Here's a look at some headlines from New York's ethnic and community media. Many Jews in the Ukraine are trying to flee as unrest continues in the country. Marina Steinman, an official for the Jewish Agency for Israel in the Ukraine, told The Forward that the agency is receiving more calls than usual from people who've already been considering immigration but now want the process rushed. This amidst a wave of anti-Semitic attacks in several Ukrainian cities, including Kiev. From Home Reporter, one Brooklyn group is working to reach out to LGBT seniors who've avoided beneficial programs. A group called Senior Umbrella Network B, based in Bensonhurst, recently met to discuss how many seniors in the city don't seek medical and social services because of fear of discrimination. The group is looking for ways to approach LGBT seniors with more empathy. Those working on behalf of LGBT seniors say since many gay elders lived during a time when being gay was grounds for being institutionalized, they are still fearful of being persecuted. Low-income residents living with HIV or AIDS have won the battle for protected, affordable housing. Gotham Gazette reports that tenants living with HIV or AIDS in New York will pay no more than 30% of their income for rent. Both state and city officials approved the bill recently after former Mayor Michael Bloomberg's long-standing objection against it. The former mayor argued that it would cost the city too much money. The city will pay 71% of the cost of the program, while the state will pay 29%. The total cost is roughly $20 million a year. From the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, residents in Bay Ridge say the R train is shaking things up in the area. The paper spoke to residents in the area who say they can feel the vibrations of the R train, though they live blocks away from the station. Residents living on 4th Avenue say the train has been a problem for years, but they feel the shaking has gotten much stronger. Officials say the issue is likely track-related, and they're working to correct the problem. And finally, a group of Dominican supermarket owners have set up shop in cyberspace. El Diario La Prensa reports that last year, 10 Dominican supermarket owners who are a part of the National Supermarket Association began operating the easymarket.com. The site is based in 4 boroughs, excluding Staten Island. Customers can enjoy shopping for their groceries online and in the comfort of their own home with no delivery charge. So far, the group is receiving up to 200 orders a week. They are also working on their own chain of stores called Cherry Valley. Those were just a few headlines from New York's ethnic and community media. Independent Sources will be back right after this.
Thanks for staying tuned. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 was created to get children in public schools to eat healthier at a time when the U.S. is losing the battle of the bulge. With childhood obesity rates at an all-time high, the law was supposed to get children and parents to give up sugary and salty foods for healthy alternatives. A good idea in theory, but what happens when students don't like the healthier choices or complain about the portion sizes? That's just one of the issues the Department of Education and some of its partners are addressing. Sarah Pizon spoke with Lisa Suriano of the New York Coalition for Healthy School Food about what her organization and the DOE are doing to make school lunches healthier.
Before we start, I'd like our viewers to know that we asked the Department of Education to be part of our conversation, but no one was available. They did, however, issue us a statement that read in part: the city has been ahead of the curve in offering healthy options for school children. Since 2004, the DOE has made changes to the menu items, such as replacing white bread with whole wheat to reduce calories, sugar, and sodium while maintaining flavor. The DOE serves roughly 860,000 meals a day, the largest amount of any school district in the country. So Lisa, the DOE says they've been ahead of the curve. Have they been?
Absolutely. Yeah, they've really, working with them has been a pleasure because they get it. They really get what the changes are and what we're trying to accomplish.
So tell us a little bit about your relationship with the relationship of your organization with the Department of Education.
Sure. Well, I'm the co-chair of the board of the New York Coalition for Healthy School Food, and we're partner of the Department of Ed School Food, Office of School Food. We work directly with them. And what we do is we advocate for more plant-based entrees to be featured on the New York City school menus. So that's something that we've been doing for several years now. And we also help to provide nutrition education, which really helps the Office of School Food because they're making changes, and it's really important to have education around these initiatives. Otherwise, they can't be successful on their own.
Tell us a little bit more about these, I guess, vegetarian menus. What do they look like? What do they include?
Well, there's several different menus. If you actually visit the school food website, and they have a new website for the city operation, you'll see there's so many menus. There's K through 8 and high school menus, and there's your classic menu, the alternative menu, the alternate menu, which just was introduced last year, and a vegetarian menu. And we just recently announced the first public vegetarian school in the nation, which is in Flushing, Queens. So that was a huge accomplishment for our organization and also for the Department of Ed. So there's all those different menus. The classic menu is more of the standard traditional school food that you'd find and probably think of when you think of school food. However, there's been some changes to that menu as well. The alternative menu is it's a lot more from scratch. There's no pork or beef on that menu. There's no chicken fingers or mozzarella sticks served as lunch entrees, actual lunch items. And then there's, I think, 2 to 3 days that are plant-based, which means plant-based proteins, beans, tofu. They sourced organic, non-GMO tofu, which is an amazing accomplishment. So we're helping to promote those items, making sure that they're prepared properly in a really tasty way and an attractive way, and that there's education behind those items to support them.
Well, Lisa, I'd like you to listen to this clip from Stéphanie Rubin. She is one of the 2 entrepreneurs who've started a delivery service that provides healthy school lunches for children.
The problem is that it's not that the cafeteria food is not healthy. They're trying to make it healthy and they're working really on it. It's just not appealing. So the kids are not gonna pick whatever is healthy. They also have not so healthy options like sandwiches all the time or chips. So when you have a choice between broccoli and a sandwich, most of the kids are gonna go to the sandwich.
So Lisa, what's your opinion about this?
I have to disagree on the appealing part. I think that it's a matter of training, and I know just from personal experience that the DOE has worked really hard to train their staff in presentation of food, because we eat with our eyes. It's not first. You know, we see something and that's when it becomes appealing. And the Office of School Food understands that. They're culinarians first, and so they really get that things need to be garnished and need to look good and have to be bright and colorful and beautiful for children to want to eat them. So they've put a lot of effort into that training. Part of it, it's not so much the appealing, it's the education, and educating kids about why they want to fill half their plate with fruits and vegetables, why plant-based proteins are so much more beneficial to us than animal-based proteins. Things like that, I think, is where the missing link is, and there's a lot of great organizations, such as ourselves and others that we partner with, that are trying to close that gap.
Well, going back to what you said you serve some one of the meals includes tofu.
Mm-hmm.
How do you present that to children?
Something that we've been working on is, because it's very important and it's difficult, the Office of School Food has to also adhere to the USDA regulations. So there needs to be a certain amount of protein. So with tofu, it needs to be 4.4 ounces of protein. I don't know if you've ever eaten or prepared tofu yourself, but tofu will take on the flavor of whatever you put in it, whatever you marinate it in, however you cook it. There's many different ways to prepare it. So what we've been doing is working with school food on the best preparations for tofu. So cutting it smaller allows it to marinate better and more fully, so the flavor goes all the way through. And also, when you're roasting tofu in smaller pieces, it gets a nice caramelization and becomes crispy. So what we've done is started cutting them more like they look like the mozzarella sticks, so they have nice brown flavor, color to them. They have a lot of flavor all the way through, and that becomes a lot more appealing.
Here's another clip from Ingrid Calvo. She's the other co-founder of Inbox.
We have few comments about the portion. Some parents find the portion too big, the other too small. So we try to adjust the portion now. That's why we create a new offer with 3 items inside. But it seems that our recipes are the good one because the kids eat all the meals we prepare.
Lisa, there's always a conversation about portion sizes in America. Do you think portion sizes need to be cut?
I think we don't need to eat less. We need to eat smarter. You know, we're very fortunate in this country that food is abundant. And that's something that just become a fact of life for us. So food is everywhere. You walk around in New York City and there's so many smells and delicious things that are enticing you. So it's not about eating less and being hungry. You know, people associate being on a diet as being hungry, or have a healthy lifestyle as you're always hungry. It's not true at all. I'm never hungry. I eat a lot. Eating a lot and eating often, but eating calories that are nutrient dense. So meaning that per calorie you're getting a lot of vitamins and minerals and health supporting nutrients in per calorie. So it's not about less, it's about eating better foods.
And what has been the feedback of these healthier lunches?
You always get mixed feedback. We're a junk food society, we're a fast food society, so the tide is turning and people are starting to bring this more into their own homes. But the initial feedback has been very positive, particularly in the schools that have educational initiatives. Those are the schools that have the greatest success. PS244 in Flushing had incredible success with a fully vegetarian menu. All of their food is vegetarian, because they made a commitment to having every part of the curriculum touching on healthy lifestyle. And that is where the success we find is greatest.
Are there any benefits to eating healthier? What are there?
Of course. There's a lot of research that shows that kids who eat a healthier diet, more plant-based diet, do better in school, have a longer attention span, there's less disciplinary acts, a greater attendance. So all of those issues come into play.
Great. And it's not just about feeding these children, it's also about educating them and their families.
Yeah.
How do you help promote this education?
We do a lot of things. My company, Vives-Vasquez, we're a culinary nutrition education program, so we teach kids really relevant information about fruits and vegetables and beans and why they're so good for their bodies. So we provide promotional materials to schools right there, point of sale for cafeterias. Why is this tomato so great for me? Why are these kidney beans so great for me? So I provide those to the coalition, to the schools that partner with us. We also have a curriculum that's in schools that's been piloted and now is in schools called Food Unearthed, so teaching children about food and sort of being able to navigate through and being very literate about food and understanding marketing towards food. That's been really successful for us. And then also, you have to make the connection between school and home, because you can do all these great initiatives at home, but if it's not at school, but if it's not being carried over at home and there's not a value to these healthy foods at home, you're really not making that much of a difference. So we do something called family dinner nights, which are really fun. We usually get either different sponsors. We have some restaurant sponsors like Candle 79, Candle Cafe. We'll do an incredible plant-based meal for the entire school community, the families, everyone's invited to come. And then we have education stations. So we talk about learning about sodium and what's the appropriate amount of sodium and where are hidden, sodium you wouldn't expect in dessert items, things like that. Understanding sugar intake and how that affects your body. Calcium, all different kinds of things that really the family gets to come together, have a wonderful meal, and learn about nutrition.
For a lot of families, eating healthier is more expensive. How do you address this issue?
You know, I hate that myth. It's really not true. I am a vegetarian and my husband is a meat eater. The most expensive part of our grocery bill is meat for him. So I believe that culinary education, and that's why my company of education is culinary nutrition education, because we can teach people about healthy food and why it's good for them, but if they don't know how to prepare it, that's when it's expensive. If you know how to take whatever vegetables are left over in your fridge and a can of beans, and you can make a delicious, beautiful, fulfilling meal out of that that's incredibly nutritious, that's a lot less expensive than getting takeout of something that's fried or very heavy in calories.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back, a pioneering Chinese radio station in Queens fighting to stay relevant. Finally, 25 years ago, a Taiwanese immigrant established the first Mandarin language radio station in Flushing, Queens. That station gave the city's newly arriving Chinese immigrants a significant voice. We hear more about how the station helped build that community in this report filed by Sarah Pizon.
Richard Shui emigrated from Taiwan to New York City as a young journalist in 1979. After working for several Chinese print publications in the city, Shui raised some money and established a Chinese American Voice, or CAV, in Flushing, Queens in 1986. It was the first Mandarin-speaking radio station in New York.
We try to provide, the new knowledge, the new life, the new immigrants they should have.
At the time, most of the Chinese media in New York City catered to Chinatown's Cantonese-speaking community. That changed as more Taiwanese immigrants and mainland Chinese arrived in New York City in the 1990s. Shui enlisted the aid of some of his friends from Taiwan to bring the Mandarin-speaking community of New York the latest news from their homeland.
I have friends in Taiwan. They produce a news program 10 minutes every day, and they send by phone, send to New York, and we reproduce that program.
Eventually, CAV became a prominent voice for New York's Mandarin-speaking community. The station also began airing a wide range of programs 24 hours a day, including English lessons.
We have many programs that we invite those experts to come to the studio and to explain how they think they can have the better life living in New York. How can they apply for the service that they need? How to select a good lawyer for them, the English lessons. Okay, that's very important, especially the older people. They want to learn English.
The radio station saw its political influence and programming grow, along with the increasing Chinese population. It also promoted and supported Asian American elected officials from Flushing, Queens.
Now the Chinese community in Queens elected the first city council from that area, elect the first state assemblyman. Yeah, we have the city controller before, Mr. Zhang Lu, and we even comes up a congresswoman, Mr. Grace Mann. So we can see that the media and the community, the power strength is more and more than before.
But as the population's grown, so has the competition. 2 more Mandarin radio stations opened in the late 1990s, and then Chinese TV stations came along.
We can feel that the population, the listenership is go down.
After 24 years, CAV saw a diminishing audience. They realized they needed to merge with a multimedia company to make a bigger impact.
The ethnic radio is going down now. You can listen programs on the internet from everywhere.
So in 2012, CAV merged with a Los Angeles-based Chinese network called Information Culture News, ICN, to form a news station, ICN-CAV.
Gradually, the top brass felt that New York City, being both a commercial, cultural, and a business, we need to have a footing here in the Big Apple.
Lei Yu is one of ICN's producers and program hosts. For him, Shui is a childhood hero. He used to listen to him on the radio growing up. He says that things are still rough even after the merger, because now they have to also appeal to a bi-coastal audience.
As more immigrants coming into the city, our responsibility, its responsibility grows. We have to be mindful of what's happening with the mainstream, what the Americans are thinking, but we also have to be considerate to the needs, the unique cultural and the timely needs of the many immigrants, whether it's from China, Taiwan, or Hong Kong.
Though the station's audience is aging, ICN-CAV is committed to adapting its programming to the changing demographics in the city. Nonetheless, this radio station remains a pioneering voice in the Chinese community. For Independent Sources, I'm Sarah Pizon.
That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Till next time, be independent-minded.